Hi there, and welcome to the Living with SMA podcast. We're here to have conversations about living with spinal muscular atrophy. Throughout this podcast, we will be covering lots of different topics, from preparing for university, getting the most from your personal budget, sex and relationships, and lots more. So we invite different hosts from across the SMA community to come together here. We want to answer your questions, provide you with useful tips and recommendations, and also share personal stories. So please do reach out and connect with us here at the charity SMA UK. Thank you for listening, and we hope you find the podcast useful.
Welcome to part 1 of About Toilets. Today we'll be discussing bathrooms that are not fully accessible, the radar key scheme alongside maintaining the lock standards, and multi-purpose bathrooms.
Hello everyone, welcome to our next episode of Living with SMA, and I'm your host today, Louis, and we're going to be talking about toilets and some of the things that impact the community and some of the positive stuff as well. I'm very fortunate to be joined here today by two wonderful guests, and I think it's going to be a really interesting chat. So whoever wants to go first, if you can please introduce yourselves.
Ladies first.
Oh, Ross. Okay, my name is Jasmine. I'm 28 from the southwest of the UK. I have SMA type 2. I work full-time in payroll and I live with my husband and our beautiful cat who's called Baby.
Fantastic.
Cool. Thanks for that. I'm Ross Hovey, 42, nearly 43, SMA type 2. I live in Cambridgeshire. I probably live some people's dreams, the bachelor lifestyle. And I work full time for a rather large bank in the city as their accessibility manager.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for joining us today. I think it's best to just jump straight into it. The whole idea behind this episode was some of the experiences that I've had when using accessible bathrooms when I'm out and about. And before I share my stories, I just wanted to know if either of you have had incidences where people have been the problem, or the bathroom has been the problem, or things haven't worked like they should. It's just, let us know about what your experiences are.
Okay, I'll go first if you don't mind, Ross. For me, this is quite negative, but I find whenever I'm out in the public, whether it's a pub, a restaurant, a garden centre or anything like that, it's very rare that the disabled toilet is actually fully accessible. And what I mean by that is either it's not big enough for a wheelchair and a carer and yourself. It could be that there's a baby changer in there, so there's a massive bin full of nappies, so you can't actually get your chair close enough to the toilet. Just a little bit of background, I won't bore you, but I used to have a suprapubic catheter, so I could go for a wee anywhere. I could go in a bottle, in a jug, anywhere, and that worked brilliant. But now I'm actually lifted onto the toilet. It's made me more aware of how much space you need, and they just don't have, in my opinion, they don't have enough space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's terrible. I think that not a lot of thought goes into the design of such spaces. So I'm obviously it's not great to hear stories like that, and I think that within the community, not just in the SMA community, that people with disabilities really struggle with the bathrooms. Ross, how about you?
Yeah, so I couldn't comment on anything different from what Jasmine has shared, but I guess to kind of maybe expand into some other areas. So some places don't even have an accessible toilet, or some places have an accessible toilet but then have a step to get inside their establishment, which kind of is bizarre. At work, and not just the organisation I work for, but other offices that I visit, the disabled toilet or the accessible toilet seems to be the place where people enjoy to go for a quiet poo. So because it's private, so in the 10 minutes I get sometimes between meetings, I head to the accessible toilet and I find myself waiting outside because it's engaged, which, fair enough, it could be anybody with a disability using it, but then a person leaves and the first thing they do is say, "I'm sorry." And to me, sorry is an admission of guilt. You wouldn't apologise if you didn't need to be in there, would you?
Absolutely.
And then I think kind of, out and about, in the UK at sporting events, accessible toilets tend to get misused. They tend to be good places for people who may have interesting habits that they want to do in there. So that's another. They're quite a lucrative place, accessible toilets, I think, in terms of. The biggest problem, one of the biggest problems, is when you travel outside of the UK. Is a lot of foreign countries will have a accessible toilet in the male bathroom and an accessible toilet in the female bathroom. But if your carer is of the opposite sex, you have to make a choice of whether they're going to come into the one that's not their gender identity, or you're going to have to go into the one that's not your gender identity. So again, that can prove to be quite awkward.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think all of that is really spot on. I mean, I have a different perspective a little bit because I come from South Africa, and they're way far behind in terms of accessibility. And like you say about foreign countries, that's exactly the problem, is that the disabled bathrooms are inside either the male or the female side, and when you're with your mum or with your partner, you kind of forced to go in to the ladies' side because they're not going to go into the men's side. I think one of the biggest things for me here in the UK, it's happened 4 times already where I have used a radar key system bathroom to go to the toilet, and whilst lying in a semi-seating laying position on the wheelchair in a very compromising position, people have literally opened the door while I'm mid-flow. So I've done a bit of research and looked into things a bit more, and it seems to be that the older generation radar key systems don't have a function that the door cannot be opened if it's been locked from the inside. And the newer systems that do have that feature will only be able to open from the outside if they're broken. So I think that there's an element of the organization or the building managers having to maybe do a better job at maintaining those locks and testing them on a regular basis, which I think is not happening, which is why that's happened to me 4 times already, and I've only been here for 18 months, and I don't go out a lot. I also think looking at, like you're saying, Ross, about people using it for other activities other than the bathroom, or if they don't have a disability. Last year, I attended the Move conference in London at the XL building. And one of the reasons why I could go with my carers, because I use a care agency, and if you watched our last episode about the carers, my care is very dictated by policies. So we were only allowed to go because there was a changing places bathroom at the venue, and there would be a hoist for them to hoist me onto the table and do my business and then back again. And when we got there, we were told that the lift was out of order and that the changing places bathroom was on the bottom floor. So I was in a position where I either don't go or we bend the rules to go to the bathroom, and I was there for 2 days. So you can imagine the difficulty that we had. And the problem with the XL is it's not just one event that goes on. There's like 4 or 5 events happening at the same time. And by the end of day 1, the disabled bathroom that was opposite our hall was so covered in wet toilet paper that it was actually getting stuck in my front wheels of the wheelchair and we couldn't get in and out. It was disgusting. It was absolutely horrible. So on the first day, I got home after an hour and a bit train ride, busting for the bathroom because there was just nowhere that I could go. So I think there's maybe some responsibility from event managers and building managers to try and address those kind of problems. I don't know what you guys think about that.
So you covered quite a lot there. So I think the first part you said was about the state of the locks, so the older ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, that should be part of a maintenance program. I think the other bit is sometimes in venues, it's not even a radar key; it's a key behind the bar, or in a restaurant you have to ask for the key. Very dignified. To like, can I please, use the bathroom? In terms of like misuse, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
I think sorry.
No, go first, Jasmine. No, you
I was
first.
just going to say, I think as well, like when you do have to ask for a key behind the bar, sometimes they don't know where it is, so they have to go and find somebody to find the key. Then they've lost the key, and then you're just there thinking, am I going to wet myself, or what am I actually going to do? So those situations are quite difficult as well.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. It definitely isn't pleasant. I think also another time we're going to London for a work lunch, and I had to go 3 restaurants down into this dark storeroom, go all past the restaurant's stock lying all over the place into the back of the room where the disabled toilet was, that it is so full of alcohol and drinks. It was like being used as a storeroom cupboard. It was really funny. It took 15 minutes to clear everything out the way just to get in the bathroom. So I think there's a definite knowledge gap in terms of venues and what they can do to make our experience a little bit more easier.
An interesting thing is, I'm not sure that the state of toilets in the world is an exclusive thing to accessible toilets. I don't think that toilets generally are well maintained. I think we get the rough end of the stick more. And it's interesting because I'm looking back now on some of my carers when we go to the bathroom, and they often joke, "Oh, Ross, you bring me to all the best places." So that probably is an insight of what most toilets are like. They're smelly, they're dirty, they're stock rooms. I think, kind of again, talking about the baby changing facility that you're sometimes sharing it with. I think I was in a bathroom the other month where the koala bear thing that is the baby changer of the strap had broken. So I was basically holding it with my head like this whilst trying to have a wee. And I get like really occasional, what I'd call from a man's point of view, stage fright. So I think the experience that Jasmine was talking about, when I have to go to the bar and I have to wait, and then I'm waiting and everyone's looking at me, I then get to the bathroom and I'm like, oh, I can't go because I feel like I'm now under pressure, and that can have a really bad impact. And actually, occasionally, I don't really drink anymore, but sometimes when I drink alcohol, I get the same thing where, as my mates would say, they'd like to go for a sit-down wee, as they call it. If the changing places facility isn't there, but I'll come in and I'll literally get in my hoist and I'll be able to pee absolutely no problem. So again, I think that linking into the other bit, I think, for most people with SMA at some point in their life, an accessible toilet, doesn't matter how big or how clean it is, they're going to need something that's got, the hoist. I mean, I don't actually like the name changing places. I know I might be digressing slightly here, but I often also think that it implies that we all wear pads, and that we need to change. It's not. It's that, I don't know if either of you had a spinal fusion, but the only way that I can really get my jeans on is if I'm laying down. I can do it in the chair, but then my bits end up somewhere up near where they shouldn't be. So
I can totally relate.
I'd like to know how you get them on in your chair, because I cannot master it.
I can just about. It's not comfortable. It's not pleasant.
No, it's definitely not pleasant. Definitely not pleasant. I can totally relate to that, Ross, and I think that's quite a valid point that you've made there. That it does kind of imply that we're using pads or things like that. I think for me, using changing places bathroom for the first time was phenomenal because I'd never seen anything like that before, and to see what could be done in a space like that is really great. I mean, they don't look like the conventional accessible bathroom, which look clinical and just remind you of being at the hospital. And I think for some people that can cause, I know, not necessarily in the SMA community, but I had a friend who just couldn't go to the bathroom if it looked clinical because he had such bad flashbacks from being in hospital and not being able to go to the bathroom because the nurses were pressuring him to go quicker, and he just couldn't go, and he would end up just going around the corner where no one could see and using a bottle, So I think that there's a lot more that people can do to improve that situation.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, so I just want to kind of put something quickly. Changing places toilets are a wonderful thing, and I do have a part-time voluntary job as kind of looking at an international level on that, and I'm an absolutely advocate for the equipment and the brand. The name has been around a lot longer than I've been involved, and that is the brand that's known.
Mm-hmm.
I know from even speaking to other people with disabilities, and one particular friend with SMA who I hope might watch this, he'll be laughing now because he'll know exactly who it is, and I'm not going to say his name, but he absolutely hates the name because he said it just means that everybody thinks that he wears an adult nappy,
mm-hmm.
and he doesn't. And I think that's my only bugbear with it. But you're right, the facilities, and some of them are clinical still because they're, if you go to the one in King's Cross toilet, it's not clinical like a hospital, but it's equally not funky like some of the ones that they put in football grounds and things like that. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
This brings to an end of part 1. Please stay tuned for part 2, where we will be discussing gender-neutral bathrooms, policy and standards, and lack of awareness.
You've been listening to the Living with SMA podcast. We hope you can join us again next time, but in the meantime, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can find out more on our website at smauk.org.uk.